Hello and welcome back to OCD Coded. I'm Erin Brown, licensed marriage family therapist and mental health counselor. I have OCD myself, and my goal with this is to help you to decode your own OCD and turn it into a superpower. So today, talking about OCD and AI, and it's a big thing that comes up a lot with OCD. One of the a common obsession is about uh and it's a common type of dissociation too, and we'll talk about that as well, but that the about kind of the idea that reality is not real or that we're in a simulation or um different kind of things like that that might come up, different kinds of ways of feeling distant from reality. And with dissociation, which is really common and more than what people think, and it's just the brain protecting itself. It's the way of deciding and trying to process the pain and the past in different ways. And so, but derealization is a type of dissociation, and it means that the world doesn't feel real, while depersonalization is feeling like not yourself or like your body's not your own or those kind of things. And as with anything, it can be totally normal to some extent, but then there is a place where it goes into extremes. But the whole idea is to be able to recognize it and to be able to respond to that fear differently. And that's the whole point that we're trying to do with all of this. And so with OCD, it has a really hard time responding to that fear differently. And with AI or with feeling in a simulation, and I mean, when The Matrix came out and different kind of movies like that can really feed that kind of fear. And then it can get into that, how do we know we're not, and how do we test that, and trying to figure it out and find out ways to test that theory, and but never quite feeling assured or validated with it. And OCD gets really stuck on that. And I have to admit that I as well have struggled with it. And even in the process of trying to write a book and doing these videos and the podcast, we're trying to see, how much I should try and use AI or not. It really, I notice the fears that come up and just all of the unknowns. It's still so new in so many ways. And, wanting to use it and get good at it and use it for good, knowing it as a tool that can be used for, positive or negative, but then also really wondering about where those lines are between, you know, um, what is what is mine and what is it, sort of like copyright laws and all of that. But then, in different ways, also hearing a lot that people are using AI well and make a difference between like artificial intelligence and where things like ChatGPT and Claude and all of those are large language models, which is not the same as artificial intelligence. And it's not, it's collecting data and assimilating data. And one of the things that I find to be hard to deal with is that they're made to keep you engaged. That's their biggest goal, is to keep you engaged. So whatever they can feed you or tell you or however they can say it to keep you engaged is what they're going to do, or the way it's going to, the angle kind of with it. And what's hard about that is, like then it's not as, it can, people can think it's um like it can attribute more intelligence to it than it actually has. And that already, seeing that people, like, there can be a tendency to get lost in it or to start to, that it can really affect the way people think already, because it's bouncing things back in order to keep you engaged, but then it feels or seems so true at the same time. And I really want to hear what all of you think about all of this, and ways that you've maybe struggled with it or ways that you've really enjoyed it. That I don't claim to be the expert on all of this. I think it's important to talk about the thoughts and the fears and to validate the fears as real without also knowing them to be true. And that's a big thing that I really work on. And but that also, it's really hard. And I find myself, trying to decide again how much to interact, how to keep, um, how to try to discern when I'm obsessing and compulsing about it and when I'm being cautious, or, um, when I am feeling it's my intuition. And that's such a big thing with it all, is how to discern between all of those. And it really can make a big difference with how, that, like, to be able to recognize my thoughts and to see myself as an observer in that way, and to know that I've heard it said too that, like, that's part of what the large language models, that it's part of how, like, mapping the different kind of the stream of consciousness. And I think in some ways it can be such a huge advantage in seeing it as a way, as such a resource, but then also, it's just that a whole idea, which is such a thing with humanity in general, of what do we keep secret or private and what do we share in this broad sense, and and how do we do that in a way that feels authentic and ethical and moral, and as well as, the value of our worthiness. And, but then what I think is such a deep seated thing is, our need and want to help each other, and that it can look different for different people, that we're not all going to help each other in the same way, but that the goal with all of this is to help kind of find your light and what your, strengths are in that, and shine them out in the world. And how OCD can really make that hard to do. And that's just all the fear and the doubt in any of the ways, and whether it's with AI or not, but recognizing. And I think at the end of all of it, we're gonna realize that we need each other. And it's gonna bring us back together as humans in so many ways, and humanity, and how to get out of our heads and into the present moment. And that's a big thing with OCD as well. But one of the biggest antidotes, besides the maybe, maybe not, and being able to just sit in that unknown and to move forward and do the best we can with the information we have now. But that also knowing that, then that's the whole thing of turning toward each other, that we can work on things to a point in our head, but then at some point we have to get out there and practice these things, and it has to be okay to make mistakes. And how can we own up to that without taking blame and shame, and then also be able to come back together and make those repairs, and be able to see each other in this way. So I hope that that was helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it and different things that you see and with it and ways you approach it. And I look forward to talking to you again next week. Thank you. Bye.